All right, it's, what is it?
11:15.
11:15, all right. And we started stripping the wiring off the bike. This is the accumulator. I'm not sure if you know, are familiar with those. This guy watches the output from the alternator, and if the alternator is putting out voltage, it turns off the charge warning light on the headlight. So this is an accumulator, and it's monitoring the output from the alternator. It's not a flasher, even though it looks like one. It's not. It's the accumulator. All right, walking back here, walking. These are the wires from the fuel gauge sensor. Those are still pending. Coming back here, good ground going to the battery. Fuse is good. A nice little charge system set up here. I'll clean these wires, but they look good. These are the wires that used to go to the rectifier assembly. I'm going to clean them all up and use them to connect to the new solid state rectifier regulator that I'm going to install. Coming around the other side, Kevin just took this wire and cleaned it all up and heat shrinked the part that's not being used so he could take the Zener diode out of here. So there's no more Zener diode, but the ground wire does go down to this nice chrome bolt that we added. So that's nice and clean. And in the meantime, I've been up here ripping and tearing, and here's all the wires that go up underneath the gas tank and get all hooked together. Looks horrible, doesn't it? Looks like, oh my God, that's impossible. It's not. Basically, it's color code. You know, you hook the same color wires together, and 9 times out of 10, I don't know, 90 times out of 100, everything's fine. They just work just great. So color code is important when you're playing with these wires. Also, knowing what each wire does for a living is very important, and I know that because I've been working on them for so long. And here's some more connectors I need to take off. All right, we'll pull on those, try to get those off. Okay, and switches. They're long enough for high rider handlebars, which means maybe this was a high rider. Anyway, all these wires get reconnected, but a lot of them are just going to be cut off and capped because they're redundant because of putting the Boyer ignition on there. So that's what I'm going to start working on next is cleaning and rehooking. All right, what else to say? Instrument lights. What I'll probably do is take the instrument lights inside the headlight, get them out of the big bundle back there. Anything that can be moved and get away from it is important. This is the Boyer that's going to be put back in. I'll clean all these wires up and put that back in. This is the resistor pack that we no longer need. This cut at 12 volts down to 6 volts for the ignition. Don't need that. This is the old rectifier, and this is the old Zener. These are going to be replaced by a solid state charging box that does the whole job in one box with new solid state electronics. These are just some of the connectors that were holding that center bundle together, and I always take them out and I always throw them away. This time I did an autopsy on them so I can show you what happens after they're in place for 30, 40 years. They tend to corrode, they tend to get loose, and they tend to do this. Look at that. That one actually broke internally. Now any wire that went in here would be possibly intermittent. So I'm going to replace all of these connectors. I stock them by the dozens. I buy 100 at a time. So I've got all these connectors. And I'll put all fresh connectors in that wire bundle in the center. Actually, I put new connectors on anything I touch. Just because of this type of stuff. I'm surprised there's only one out of all of these that actually fractured, because usually I find more. This one, look at the spacing on it, and you can see that it's probably loose. You know, it's the spacing on them. If it gets wide, they get loose. So anyway, that's where we are. We are at the end of ripping and tearing, and now I'm going to go into cleaning and reassembly mode on the wires. Here are the wires that go to the old rectifier. They've been cleaned up. Little CRC carb cleaner and a rag. They come out real nice. Kevin is over there doing that right now to these other wires. getting them all cleaned up so we can see the color codes. And once we get them all cleaned up, we'll start putting things back together. Cool. Now, the real reason I'm doing this is over here. This is the Podtronics rectifier regulator unit, one-piece solid state that replaces the old rectifier and the old Zener diode. So I just thought I'd show you that before I install it, which I'm getting ready to do now. By the way, we got a few more connectors out of that bundle on the other side. Kevin pulled them out. And look, here's another one that's split. So we had two that were split. And if you look at this, it's very spread. So, and that was very spread. So this is the kind of stuff that will put you on the side of the road at midnight wondering what happened when everything went dark. This bad connection here. So that's why I never, ever, ever reuse any of the Lucas connectors on any of the bikes that I work on. Always do fresh. Heck, I'll walk over here for just a moment and show you. This drawer is just chock full of bullet connectors and singles, doubles, triples, everything I need. Stock it by the hundreds, and let me tell you, it's really expensive, which is why I actually charge for each one I use. So that's what we're doing. We're still working on electronics over here, getting them, try to get them all cleaned up and then put them back together with all new connectors. All right, a quick correction. I referred to this as a resistor. It's not. That's a condenser pack that used to protect the mechanical points from arcing. So the condensers are in here, also known as capacitors, but we call them condensers. This is the resistor that that I won't say converted, but resistance lowered the 12 volts going into 6 volts coming out for the 6 volt coils that Norton used. Let's go over here and I'll show you a trick I do. I'm giving away all my tricks. I take a nice connector and I put, this has got 5 nice solid ground wires in it. And I put it in here with a star washer under it after having scraped away the paint. And this gives us a really nice centralized ground. Anything needs a ground, we got a wire for it. If there's extra wires, we'll just coil them up for the next guy to use. So centralizing the ground will help when I go connecting all of these wires together. That's just a secret. By the way, since it's so important, I do solder those wires onto the connector. I don't crimp them. And the star washer cuts into the metal so you get a really, really good ground when you bolt it down. Let's see what other secrets we can give away. Let's talk about the capacitor for a minute. Triumph didn't have them. BSA didn't have them. Norton had them. These are your limp home capacitors that will keep your bike running when your battery goes dead. It acts like a miniature battery. They're oil filled, which is why they want them mounted upright, vertical, which is, really great on a motorcycle, an oil filled capacitor. So let's do a quick test. I've got the meter set to resistance times 100. Go ahead and put the tips together. Nice full. I love analog meters. I do not use digital. I'm just an analog guy, old-fashioned. Now we're going to put the contacts on here, the probes, one way like that, and then we're going to reverse them and watch the needle jump. And hold it on there long enough. There, now watch it jump over and see it slowly bleeding off. Yep. Okay, now go ahead and reverse them and watch the needle jump. And slowly bleeding off. So that tells you, theoretically, you have a good capacitor. If it goes over and stays, or if it doesn't move at all, then the capacitor is bad. Okay, good enough. Cool. So we're going to remount this now. I always take them off and throw them away on my own bike, but we're going to remount it, try to get it up here out of the way so I can move the battery back a little ways so I can put the new solid state rectifier and regulator in this area right here. So that's what we're doing next. All right, so not quite 1 o'clock, And I think we're going to call it a day because I have stuff I need to do to my RV because it's going to go in the shop tomorrow and I need to get it ready. The accumulator's here. We're going to mount it on this bolt. The new rectifier is being mounted on the backing plate of the air conditioner, the air cleaner. That's in place now, and the silicone mount is drying. The capacitor is remounted on a higher bolt to get it up out of the way of the battery. The battery is all the way this way now, and I'm going to build a bracket that'll go from here up over the battery to hold it in place. I'll do that tomorrow. These are the wires that go to the rectifier. The yellow go to the alternator. The red and black go to the battery, basically. Walking over here, we've done a lot of cleaning. We've got everything shiny, bright, and color codes clean and bright to be used. And tomorrow, we're going to start putting this thing back together tomorrow. I've run out of time today.